Bom dia a todas as pessoas que estão aqui presentes nesse encontro organizado pela EBSCO com a colaboração do ISCTE, que agradecemos muito. Bom dia também a todas as pessoas que estão nas suas respectivas instituições, acompanhando-nos aqui nesse encontro sobre o EBSCO Discovery Service. No dia de hoje vamos contar com a presença do nosso especialista, o Dr. Clive Wright, que está aqui à minha esquerda. Essa apresentação tem estimada uma duração mais ou menos de 1 hora e um período logo de perguntas. As pessoas que estiverem remotamente acompanhando-nos podem enviar uma mensagem através do e-mail, o e-mail da EBSCO, que conhecem, o mail pt@ebsco.com, ou mesmo ao meu e-mail, se tiverem mais preferência, certo? Bom, então, fazendo uma pequena apresentação sobre o Clive, ele é o vice-presidente dos produtos de descoberta da EBSCO, Software as a Service, que é, digamos, uma linha de produtos que a EBSCO está a oferecer agora à nossa comunidade. Ele trabalha na região da Europa e América Latina. A trajetória do Clive é bastante, digamos, extensa. Na EBSCO, 14 anos, começou na Inglaterra, vão perceber pelo seu sotaque, que é um sotaquezinho britânico, agradável de ouvir, aos meus ouvidos, pelo menos. Ele também trabalhou nos Estados Unidos e esteve, digamos, com apoio, dando apoio na parte da editorial dos conteúdos das bases de dados da EBSCO, como Content License Manager, e depois diretor de Publisher Relations, com os editores, para introduzir recursos dentro das nossas bases de dados. O Clive é especialista dos serviços de descoberta e a sua experiência no intercâmbio de informação tem sido muito rica e vão poder apreciar agora nos exemplos que nos vai apresentar durante essa reunião. Entre os atributos do Clive, muitos, pois Product Management, Content Development, mas basicamente está bastante focado no que é o produto EBSCO Discovery Service. Se nós fizermos um pequeno percurso histórico do que foi a trajetória do formato eletrônico nas bibliotecas, alguns recordarão a época que passamos, ou que passaram, do Cardex para os disquetes, não é? Não sei se alguém lembra desses formatinhos, os CD-ROMs. A EBSCO nos anos 80 começou a produzir as suas bases de dados em formato de CD-ROM, depois em DVD. Alguém talvez nas faculdades de medicina, recordarão os DVDs, não é? Pronto. As pesquisas federadas vieram dar um impulso também aos recursos eletrônicos. Depois, atualmente, temos lá muitos dispositivos para aceder à informação das bibliotecas. Muitas novidades e uma bastante recente novidade da EBSCO, que espero que gostem de conhecer, é o Plum X, Plum X, que nós chamamos. Muito em breve receberão informação sobre a WebEx, que vai ser divulgada para que conheçam um pouquinho melhor esse produto, que é um produto de, controle da bibliometria, certo? De uma forma muito especial. Quem é que não ama o seu OPAC? Ou que já amou o seu OPAC muito, muito? Acho que todos amam, não é? Amam muito, com todo carinho. Mas, no entanto, o OPAC, com o tempo, foi perdendo seu protagonismo nas bibliotecas. As bibliotecas passaram a ter já muitos recursos e cada vez mais recursos eletrônicos, não é? E um probleminha que os utilizadores costumam transmitir nas bibliotecas é a falta de integração. O que rompe o coração de muita gente amante do OPAC. Portanto, em alguns estudos, entre vários estudos, um estudo da UCLC retrata que a percepção dos recursos eletrônicos da biblioteca é que os utilizadores estão um pouco dispersos. Em alguns casos, não vou dizer que todos, mas em alguns casos se sentem um pouco dispersos entre a quantidade de oferta de recursos nas bibliotecas. Então, a nova protagonista dessa mudança com relação a recursos eletrônicos é a própria internet, né? A web. E a vilã, digamos assim, um pouquinho para as bibliotecas, é a consulta feita através de motores de pesquisa não tão especializados, não tão dirigidos ao que são os conteúdos da biblioteca, como o Google. Portanto, a web, muito boa, ela é uma facilitadora, digamos, de resultados, é um novo modelo de pesquisa, mas o sentimento dos bibliotecários e, em geral, até dos próprios investigadores, é que a informação muitas vezes não está bem ordenada e não facilita de forma seletiva aquilo que eles querem encontrar imediatamente, não é? Então, também é necessário encontrar uma solução para que possa integrar os recursos, buscar o texto integral em várias fontes, não é? E integrá-los, e vamos ver como é que poderia ser e o que foi feito durante esses anos para poder solucionar essa questão da integração. Pois apareceram os serviços de descoberta, primeira geração, portanto, recursos que dão maior visibilidade aos recursos da biblioteca, aos recursos contratados, melhorou a experiência do utilizador de forma simplificada, quer dizer, uma caixinha de pesquisa. Depois apresentaram, digamos, os resultados de forma intuitiva, familiar. Atendeu-se também às necessidades do utilizador de diferentes níveis de necessidades, por exemplo, os investigadores especializados, digamos, os doutores, os professores de modo geral, e aquele aluno também dos primeiros cursos. E a facilidade de que a informação estava para eles às 24 horas do dia, 7 dias por semana. O que nós propomos, EBSCO Discovery Service, é uma evolução dessa primeira geração de descoberta. Portanto, um recurso que dê maior relevância aos resultados, que enriqueça o conteúdo e os registros que foram preparados pela biblioteca. Aplicamos, digamos, possibilidades tecnológicas, como facetas, como widgets, para poder ajudar digamos, na recolhida da informação que eles consideram pertinente. Aumentar as estatísticas de uso, justamente para justificar as próprias renovações dos recursos e, sobretudo, para apoiar... um momentinho, que estamos aqui um pouquinho avançadas. Clive, não entres ainda? Bom, agora mesmo que eu fiquei perdida. Mas pronto. Basicamente, o que nós pretendemos com o serviço de descoberta é dar e apoiar o maior desempenho profissional e acadêmico dos seus clientes, né? De todos os seus clientes também que estão ali a ver-nos através da videodifusão. Portanto, vamos deixar ao Clive, passo a palavra a ele, para que possa dar uma explicação mais detalhada, que é o que vocês vieram ouvir hoje, de como funciona o EDS, de como pode ser interessante e útil para as suas bibliotecas. Certo? Muito obrigada, então.
Obrigado. Bom dia. It's nice to see you all. My real role here today is to help you understand discovery services. I'm not a salesperson. There is a sales presentation that I'm sure Patricia and Licia will share with you at some point if they've not already shown you. But really to be a consultant for you. This is a very small group, so I'm more than happy for you to participate in some of the implementation examples that I have to share with you today. What did you do? Sorry, I'm only joking. Where's it gone? Thanks. So, the real title of this presentation is to increase usage, increase the environment, employment of the library. And the way that libraries have been doing this is to use a discovery service, a platform that pulls your repository, your catalogue, your journals, your ebooks, your databases into one environment. Now, you'll hear a lot of things about discovery that are overselling what a discovery service can do. I've seen slides from librarians, from vendors that say, search all of your full text that the library has. Well, that's not necessarily true. It can be true, but don't be sold by this is the magic bullet that will do everything. It can do almost everything. The Discovery Service itself is there to find as much content as you have. So what I'm going to do is show you some of the libraries and how they've been trying to maximize that full text integrated into Discovery Service. So I wanted to start off with an independent report, something that has nothing to do with any of the commercial vendors. Marshall Breeding is a well-known consultant that works for NISO, the standards organization, and I wanted to show you what's happening with Discovery today. So in his report in the American Libraries magazine, he was talking about around 8,000 libraries in the world have a Discovery Service, which actually isn't that much. When I look around the people today here, I'm thinking, yeah, not all of you have a Discovery Service. And that's quite common. You know, I travel around Europe and Latin America, and not every country has adopted Discovery Service. France, for example, there's only a half a dozen libraries in France that have adopted Discovery. However, in the UK, in Germany, almost all of them have. So there's real regional differences about the adoption of Discovery Service. And Portugal, it seems, is one of those late adopters. They want to just take their time, see what's available, really get a good understanding if a Discovery Service fits your needs. So really, Marshall Breeding is pointing towards the 8,000 libraries having Discovery Service, and he's also identifying 3 major players in this space. And Summon is made by ProQuest, Serial Solutions. Primo is made by Ex Libris, and EDS is made by EBSCO. So you have 3 major players. And these 2 were the first generation. They were released in 2008, 2009, and EDS was released 2010, 2011. So for a couple of years, these 2 were really the market player in the discovery space, and then EDS came along and has really kind of overtaken. I heard a librarian come up with an analogy of Alta Vista. Does anybody? You're all too young to remember Alta Vista. So Alta Vista was the early search engine, and we liked it, we used it. It was really the only thing on the block. And then within 2 or 3 years, this crazy American company called Yahoo came along, and we thought, oh, gosh, I'm all right with Alta Vista, but I'll try Yahoo. And Yahoo turned out to be better. So people were switching from from Alta Vista to Yahoo. And then within maybe 18 months, this even stranger company came along called Google. I am not using anything called Google. It's just a silly name. It's another startup company that isn't going to last. But sure enough, because of the relevancy, because of the experience, people were prepared to switch. And the reason that librarian came up with that analogy is because that seems to be happening in the discovery space. People were using Primo because they had SFX and MetaLib and Aleph, or they were using Summon because they wanted to be different and move away from Ex Libris, and that's always a good option. And now EDS has become the standard discovery platform. So I can discuss with you all the different competitive advantages that each of the discovery services have, the content and so on. But really today, I want to talk about how a discovery service in general, and keep away from the sales, so that you understand what a discovery service can do when it's done well. So one of the most important things that I talk to librarians about is this. Because I'm really there with Rui's help. Rui is our discovery service engineer. He's our technical specialist. So between myself and Rui, we are consultants for librarians. We're there to talk about discovery services. And we really rely on those 6,000 institutions that take EDS. Marshall was saying 5,700. That was a month ago. It's now over 6,000. Why is this important? Because you have all of these institutions developing the product. If you have a discovery service, you might say to me or to Rui, I would really like this Portuguese content included. I would like to default to Portuguese language. I would like some ebooks that we have as a consortium incorporated into the central index. So they're developing the discovery service. And if you imagine having such a wide customer base, just how much development is going on every day. And the support staff, there's this wiki, this discussion board that is covering questions. So you might say, I have this ILS system. I'm trying to do real-time availability checking. Has anybody done this? And then you'll have people from Brazil and people from Spain and people from Sweden and people from Australia coming back to you and say, yes, we've used Koha. We've used Koha for 18 months. Yes, we've used Circe Dynex. Yes, we've used Innovative. We've used Aleph. We've got all of those customers using EDS today that answer your questions. We have Rui, we have Clive, we have a big EBSCO support team, but you also have your peers that have actually sat where you sit and gone through this process, which is crucial. And then customer satisfaction. If there's something that's wrong, if there's something that needs to be fixed, if there's a link that's down, having 6,000 customers gets it done quickly. There's no delay, so that we're always updating things that are getting broken because we have so many users. So I think that's important from a product perspective to communicate to librarians, is that you are well supported. Being a late adopter is working really well for you. Good for you. So some of the things that we cover here, I'll talk about widgets, I'll talk about the linking, the API. All of these things may mean something to you, they may not. For those of you that really do get into the technical side, the API, Rui can go through how he has written code to make sure you have an interface exactly how you want it to look. You don't have to rely on a commercial vendor to tell you how you should incorporate your discovery service. We'll talk about catalogs and IRs, so lots of different things for different people here. I know we have faculty, there are reference librarians, subject librarians in the room, so I do cover everything for each person in the room. So, local EDS implementations. As I said before, this is a relatively small list of EDS implementations in Portugal. Why? Because not many libraries in Portugal have a discovery service. We certainly have more than any other discovery service provider, but that's not really important to you. What you want to know is how is it going to help you today? If you compare that to Brazil, still obviously Portuguese language, there are more early adopters. As you can see, there's a whole different approach to discovery in Brazil. They wanted to get it straight away. It's the medical market, the business schools, the academic, private, public schools across the whole of the country. This is just a sample. As you can tell, I couldn't fit any more logos on, so I thought that'll do. You get the idea. So with the 6,000 customers that we have, there are plenty that have gone through implementation in Portuguese, either locally or in different parts of the world. Okay, so what is discovery? This is my definition of discovery. I have seen over 100 presentations on discovery tools. Librarians, information specialists, vendors. And for me, this is what discovery tools are all about, is throwing your head into the resources of a library and hoping to find a result. It's the needle in the haystack. And I've seen librarians use the needle in the haystack. So my job, even more than Rui, is to find a needle in the haystack for every single one of those 6,000 libraries. So we have options for you. This is a standard default profile of EBSCO Discovery Service. So, single search box, results. You get that. You're information professionals, you understand how this works. So how does Discovery Service vary? How does it differ from the OPAC database, Google Scholar, and all these different things. If it's done well, it's configurable. All of these facets are configurable, and I'll show you different languages, different orders, and different styles, to have different results being pushed to the top. In this profile, we have research starters and their topics. The top 60,000 most searched terms will have some kind of research starter. And within the first, I think it was 3 months, we took a usage of EDS across those 6,000 sites, and over 50% of searches have a research data allied to that search term. So what is a research data? It's very similar to the experience that users have using Google, using a web search engine. They type something in, they want a quick soundbite of their topic, and they go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the most heavily used site once you've hit Google. So what we've done is to take those top 60,000 most used search terms and created citable reference information so that the user can have something that they use in their studies. So in this case, European Common Agricultural Policy. So wouldn't it be nice to get a quick overview of the policy that is citable? Even if they know what it is, it's nice to have something that they can incorporate into their thesis, into their essay, as a definition, as some of the key people involved with it. And that's across 60,000 different topics. Now, health, medicine, psychology, science, all have these research datas. So the second thing that I'll show you is finding the needle, finding the full text of something related to that search that's relevant. Because with almost 1 million results, you have to make sure that the results are going to be in that top 10. So the way that we do it is through relevance ranking, and I'll talk about relevance ranking very soon. And then what we can also do in a discovery service is incorporate your ebooks. So here's a book called Understanding the Common Agricultural Policy. That sounds as if it's relevant. But what I'd really like to do as a user is find the most relevant pages from this ebook. I don't have to check it out. I don't have to make sure that I have access to that thing before I check the most relevant pages from that book. So a discovery service done well is giving you relevant records, quick starters, and finding the pertinent pieces from your catalogue. So they're all value adds. If you don't have a discovery service, more content, quicker results, and also the ability to find the right paragraphs from the books. So I often get asked to go into the research data. So this is me clicking on that research data. Here you can choose the language, and there are, I think it's 60 different languages that it will be translated into, Portuguese obviously. And what it will do is give you these related information subject headings. You'll have some of the charts and diagrams, key figures, and here's the body of the text. And here's a bibliography that you can then go and research more key texts on this subject. And all of it is citable. Okay? So it's Wikipedia for the academic researcher. Much more sophisticated and usable. 60,000 topic headings. Okay, so let's try a different profile. Typed in bacterial infections, because I know we've got some medical science people in the room. And look over here, we've got something new. This profile is slightly different. They want to include subject headings from Medline, the MESH subject headings, which some of you will obviously know. And they're also, which is interesting, pointing out certain collections. These are included in the knowledge base, but they also want the user to know if you just want nursing and allied health, there's CINAHL. If you just want PubMed, You can have PubMed, even though CINAHL and PubMed is included. Okay, so this is a unique feature of EBSCO Discovery Service, having these what we call widgets. We call them widgets because they kind of cover everything. They cover these controlled vocabulary thesauri, they control links to collections, they control results, and so on. So you can call them apps, applets, anything really that pushes more information to your users. Totally configurable. And we currently have, Rui, is it more than 150 yet? Or we're around 150? It's more than 150. How have we got to more than 150 different widgets? Because of those 6,000 customers. And you will come up with a brand new widget that Rui and I have never heard of, never thought of, that we can incorporate for you. So that allows the end user to find bacterial infection from wherever they like. Because once you've clicked on these things, you don't then have to retype bacterial infection. It pushes that search term into those different collections. Okay, so that's a unique feature. And you'll also notice this particular site in Holland has the full text link here and also the request button. We've integrated their ILS. And there are different examples that I'll show you of that too. Okay. So, widgets. What kind of widgets are we talking about? The first column is talking about trying to understand our users. You're trying to understand them, we're trying to understand them, and help them find their content. So a commonly searched term that we would never think of is library hours. EBSCO thinks of a discovery service as a reference tool to find journal articles, book chapters, newspapers, and so on. But the end users think of it as their library portal. So they will type in library hours. They'll type in parking. They'll type in pretty much anything that they need. Help, please. So what we're doing is giving them results when they type in those questions, those communications to try and find other things. We're not just a reference tool. So we have this placard that will provide the local library hours. We'll have a placard that will show a campus map if they type in parking. In Portuguese and English, you just tell us what are the words that you want to have in this kind of data bank, and then we'll have the placard that fits those words. Web of Science is something that people are typing in. They go to library, they want to find Web of Science, so they type it in the discovery tool, so they expect to get Web of Science and not results with Web of Science. So we'll have a placard that takes them to the Web of Science. You get the idea. A lot of libraries have asked for the research guides to be pushed too. So we can just put that on the right-hand side for any local libguides, research guides, subject guides that you've already created. And this is something that we never thought of, and this might be interesting to you. With a discovery service, you'll get millions of results, typically. But that's too many for some people, and they don't know how to use filters and limiters and facets. So this library has created a local video so that if the threshold of 1 million results come up, a little pop-up comes up and said, "Hi, I noticed you got 1 million plus results. Would you like help using our filters?" And then they do this cool little video that shows them how to use the filters. And then in this case, the threshold might be less than 20 results. And this video will pop up and say, "Hey, I noticed you only got a few results. Would you like help?" It's kind of cool. So if you want to do that, then we have a little widget that really brings you and your information professionals to your users, trying to make sure that they understand that you're there to support them. That's quite a nice little app. So that's for user intent. Looking at content, a discovery service doesn't include everything. No discovery tool ever will. And there's plenty of articles on that subject. There's no vendor that can ever claim, even when we're all long gone, that a discovery service can include everything. And there are several reasons for that. Number one is because the publishers who own that content might not want to give it to the discovery provider. And they might give us books and journals, but they may not give us some of their subject headings, for example. Scopus. Scopus is in all the discovery tools, but they don't provide their abstracts. So, how do we find some of that content? How do we highlight some of the content that is in there and also the content that is not in there? So I've shown you an example of highlighting content that is in the central index, but also is not. Nursing Reference Centre is in the EBSCO Discovery Service central index. Up to date is not. It's a point of care. It doesn't really fit into that kind of model. But you can push the search terms into up to date, and off you go to up to date or Dynamed, clinical key, whatever it might be. This is a popular one. Rather than pushing you off to any of these different tools, any of these different collections, how about the first 3 or 4 results actually shown on that result list while you're still in Discovery Service? So this is a way that we've included some of the stuff that Elsevier doesn't give Discovery Service providers, but you still get results from them. Kind of cool way around getting that content included. And this can be applied, as you saw, to controlled vocabulary, images, and particularly for institution repositories. A lot of the libraries have archives, images, that they want included in the Discovery Service. That's what a Discovery Service is for, to bring all the library resources together. So whether you have old photographs, old documents and records that different faculties will use, we can include those too as separate collections on the right-hand side. Okay? And then on the right-hand side, I was talking before about bringing you as information professionals to your users, to show the advantages of a discovery service over something like Google or Yahoo or Bing, which is kind of impersonal. It's not really geared to your users. So we have Chat with a Librarian. We have a little app that will open up. They can type something in and it will go into your instant messaging. We have library news. Some of the libraries want to have these RSS feeds of what's going on at the university, what's going on with events, all those sorts of things being pushed to that right-hand side of discovery. Surveys. Is this working for you? Do you like this? Check here. Anything like that we can incorporate on the right-hand side for instant feedback, so that you know that they're happy and they know that you're engaged. They know that you're there to help them find their content. So these are all unique to EBSCO Discovery Service. So I said before that a Discovery Service won't include everything. Things like patents. So medical, business, engineering profiles are really strong on having their patent database. They're expensive typically, and because they don't fit into the journals and books, that the metadata is slightly different, we incorporate them as widgets on the right-hand side. Okay? And anything that's kind of local language that hasn't been included into the central index for whatever reason, institutional repositories, we try and get those results, first 3, first 4, first 5, you decide, to try and incorporate those into the index. And this is an ugly slide just to show you the variety. They're really headings rather than the actual widgets. So even QR codes, I've seen that being used so that they can scan some of the information. Wikipedia in Portuguese, if that's something of interest to you, we can throw that in as a widget. But really, as you can see, it's anything. And poor old Rui has all of the salespeople and people like the product people going to these conferences and having face-to-face meetings, and we'll come back with notes of what the local librarian wants. So Rui has to create those things. And I say to Rui, can I say to librarians and information professionals, just tell us what you want and we can do it? And he nods and he smiles. Because really, we've done so many crazy different things that nothing can surprise us anymore. Okay, so now I'm going to really scroll through some of the profiles because you get an idea really of some of the extra things a Discovery Service can do. So this is a health site which I thought would be good for this morning. Not in in English language, but in local language. So the facets are translated. They can obviously change the order of them, take some out, have some checked as default. They've incorporated here the point of care resource to try and push that to their clinicians. They've got these widgets on the right-hand side to show particular collections. And they've got other things that they wanted to show, BMJ, Micromedex, to really raise awareness of relevant subject-specific collections. Similar idea, different language, and this is where controlled vocabulary becomes very important, and it probably is important to you. If you're a psychology specialist, then obviously PsycInfo is important to you. Engineering, InSpec. Business, Business Source. So there are lots of subject indexes out there with their own thesaurus, their own controlled vocabulary. Well, this is Swedish mesh. So you type in dövhet, which I know you all know is deafness in Swedish, and it's mapping to deafness, the English version in mesh, as well as the Swedish version. So we're trying to mesh together. Very clever. So you're getting local content results, in this case Swedish language, and you're also getting those other results in English because we're mapping to the English version of deafness too. So this is a bigger version of what I was showing before. Type in library hours, and here's the MIT hours and locations. This is Web of Science with Web of Science, just so that you actually got to see that example. So again, you decide exactly what terms you want included. So this was an interesting implementation. This particular site felt it very important that the user knows they're at the library. And they wanted the user to feel that all that social media interaction with the articles, with the library, is still incorporated. So going into Discovery is not going out of the library, is not going out of the individual user's usual environment. So they've included this banner at the top, and then here would be their Discovery service, to make sure that they felt warm and fuzzy and comfortable about the Discovery experience. It's not as if you're stepping away from the library and going to Google. You stay firmly in the library, firmly in their own environment, and doing their searching. This is a blow-up of the Ask a Librarian tool. It's nicely hidden on the right-hand side, so it doesn't take up too much real estate on the page. But if they do have a question, this dynamically opens up, and they type in their chat to whoever answers chat for users. Language is handled by EDS. Obviously, you know Portuguese is there, but if you do have other campuses, if you do have other sites around the world, feel confident that, yes, we've got that covered, and we have plenty of implementations there too. So, the user can either go to their local language, this is Linköping in Sweden, or the site has translated that into English, and you can do the same in Portuguese and English and Spanish and French and German. The Discovery service, just fits around it. So here is us, and the rest of it is obviously the local implementation. So we can obviously accommodate those things using our search terms. Okay, so result lists. This looks very different from the other slides that you've seen. The facets aren't on the left anymore. The search box has gone down here. It's auf Deutsch. The facets on the right-hand side. We've got collections at number 1 here. And this is to show that the Discovery experience does not belong to EBSCO. It doesn't belong to anyone except the library. You determine, and even at the subject level, I know we have subject specialists in the room, if you want a particular experience for health and medical or psychology and science, we can do that. You don't have to all walk at the same pace at the same time for your discovery service. So this happens to be German. This is using the API. This is using a layer that they've created with the help of the discovery service engineer to create their own environment, so that it is in their local language, that the facets do belong to them and are in the same place. And it's also worth knowing, when you do decide to set up your profile, that you can keep the library tools and information as part of that experience. And this is another library in the same consortium. So they're all buying as a group, getting those discounted prices, but they're having their own profiles. So they have, again, the API with their own local facets that they've created themselves, results on the left-hand side, but they're still part of the same consortium. So, increasingly common, we'll find 3 tabs for the library. Tab 1 is in varying disguises, and you can see different disguises here. They'll call that the catalogue. But in this case, they've called it combined results, because the catalogue results are here, in this column. So 55 results will be scrolling down there for the catalogue for water, and then the discovery service will provide you with the journal articles, books, and everything else. So you can combine the experience of the library resources into one screen in this particular way. The other option is to click on books and more and just have catalogue, or to click on, in this case, articles and more and just have EDS. So you can separate it, combine it, entirely up to you. So ILS integration. How do we get your books, your local collections, or even the union catalogues, if you're trying to incorporate other sites into your discovery experience, how does it work? So in this particular example, we have a setup where they've got their catalogue. There are multiple locations for this particular university, and there is the ability within the discovery service to have the bells and whistles of the catalogue: request, item, place, hold, those sorts of experiences. And what happens is the catalogue starts to take over the experience. The ILS starts to be more involved in the experience. So you place a hold, and it goes to this combined folder. So the folder will have your checkouts, your holds, your charges, and so on. But it also has your saved searches, your search alerts, all of those things that the end user experiences of databases and the discovery experience within one shared folder. So you're not having to step out and deal with the catalogue and then go into a database to deal with searching PubMed or CINAHL or any of those academic search products. It's all in one shared folder. So again, it's really important that your discovery service enables your users a very simple, quick, efficient experience in one place. And this is, when you open up the folder, how it would look. And you can just click on any of these line items to look at your journal alerts, search alerts, saved searches, notes, and so on. It's really very sophisticated integration. And it's worth pointing out, and I'll come back to it later, that with EBSCO, because we don't own an ILS, we don't sell you an ILS and don't push you to an ILS, we are ILS neutral. So we have not just a relationship with an OCLC or an Innovative or a Circe Dynix, we have a partnership. We have developers in the same room at the same time working on this type of integration across the board, which allows you to make decisions about your own ILS. Because we're not bundling an ILS with EDS and kind of forcing you down a path, you have freedom to choose your own ILS and still have full integration. So what happens if you have multiple sites? So something like Beyond, where you have this kind of relationship with other libraries under this kind of umbrella. So this is an example of one book being part of one consortium. This particular consortium has academic libraries, public libraries, schools, medical libraries, and I want to know if this book is available at my library, and if it isn't, what's the nearest one that I can either do interlibrary loan or just pop down there and find it. So we will have real-time availability checking across whichever catalogues, whichever sites you choose. And I know that just across the way there's the University of Lisbon has a couple of catalogues. You have Aleph, you have Koha, and it's kind of confusing. Well, we can solve some of that by having different instances of that book in the Koha and the Aleph implementation. So while you're trying to figure out which one do we do something else, we can figure it out using this kind of relationship of the EDS pulling from both catalogues. And again, Rui has plenty of experience of dealing with one site with multiple catalogues or many sites with many catalogues. We've done it, we've seen it. So in this case, you can see it's available at these libraries, but it's due in on these dates. And if you scroll down even further, local circulation only. All of the information that you would expect from your catalogue is fully viewable, real-time, across all these different sites. So that's a real step forward for Discovery Services. It's not just a search tool, it's an integration tool for catalogues too. And if you don't want all that information, local circulation only, you just want a green light and a red light, that's okay. This is NTNU, that's in Trondheim. They just wanted green and red. Yep, no, done. So I show those two because we can go into detail, or we don't have to. You decide. So this particular one is that in France, the University of Rennes, they don't have any of those big commercial vendors, those Innovative and Ex Libris, those big powerhouses of ILS. The French like to do things on a local basis, and that's perfectly okay too. We have RTAC real-time availability checking, even though it's a very small independent vendor. Someone like Koha, they've been working with EBSCO since they started. They've really kind of gone quickly because of the integration that we've been able to offer them. But there are other local vendors that don't have that kind of understanding yet, so we're helping them move forward to integrate with EDS. So don't feel that you have to go with these big commercial vendors to make it work in EDS. And one of the things that the ILS vendors will really push to you is, we can do this, and this isn't difficult. People like Rui can make the integration of whereabouts in the library a particular book is held. We can integrate those things too. Right, Rui? Yes. And this is just one of those silly slides that people show to show a sample of some of the ILS vendors that we have. So certainly in Brazil, Pergamum, Sophia, they're the major players in the ILS space, so obviously we work with them. But of course you have Innovative, OCLC, Koha, not just relationships but partnerships. It's not just an API. Other discovery services will say, we work with these guys, we've got an API solution. Or we're going beyond an API, what we call a phase 2 implementation, so that we can do the placeholds, request items, not just very simple integration. So don't feel bound to one discovery service because you have a particular ILS. Even Ex Libris is here. We have all of those placeholds, request items with Aleph and so on. So, more cool graphics for you. I showed this one from Lund because this has become very popular. Hospitals like to have a guest access, a clinician's access, an administrator's access, because the experience is completely different for different types of users. Universities like to have the student access, faculty access, administrative access, so that the fields that come up, it could be an advanced search. You could have those limiters and field codes, Boolean operators being pushed to the advanced users. Whereas for the guest access and the undergraduates, you might just want a simple search. The content is also different behind these things. So you might want to really open up things for students, be very specific for faculty. They just want the art books, the art journals, the art content, the institutional repository in art for that faculty. So we'll set up different profiles. So know that you can have a Portuguese language profile. So the default would be the facets are in Portuguese, the content is being pushed. We've taken out some of the noise of the English content and really focused on what is locally important. You decide. We can help you configure it and set up those different settings. But really you have to figure out what's going to be good for each of these different disciplines, what's going to be good for my users, and we can take care of the rest. But showing you these things really should be whetting your appetite and making you think, oh, I like this one. I don't like that one, but I like this one. I often say when Rui goes to meetings, he's like a curtain salesman where they take samples. They get out their books and they go, oh, do you like these curtains? Do you like these curtains? Do you like these curtains? And that's what it's like with the EDS profiles. We've got so many examples. So University of Liverpool. This has become one of the standards because they were one of the early adopters. They had Summon. They took it in 2008. They were the European site for Summon to really show what a discovery service can do. So Liverpool have been at this longer than anyone else. They were part of their development team. So having had Summon, having tried that, they then tried EDS, moved to EDS. The salespeople could talk all about that. What I'm talking about is what their profile looks like today. Because they're going to help you accelerate from having no discovery service to having something that's pretty sophisticated. So they have their own brand. They call it Discover. They have this search box, standard stuff. They have a separate search field for their catalogue, standard stuff. But what's different is this. If you click on that, it opens up this drop-down menu with all the different disciplines, departments of the university. And behind each one of them is something completely different. And for the people in this room particularly, where you come from different disciplines or different approaches, this really should hit home what a discovery service can do. So let's click on Science and Engineering. Search for science and engineering books, etc. So what that is a mini version of Discovery. They've taken out the art databases, the music databases, the humanities, and so on. They just want the results to eliminate the noise. What they're also doing is pointing their users to the really big top 3 most important collections in their library resources. And for engineering, Compendex, Scopus, and Web of Knowledge. But they're also breaking down different fields of engineering, aerospace, civil, materials, mechanical. So, what Liverpool are doing, what they've learned, is the discovery service is fantastic to search everything in the library. But the users, the faculty, the people that actually want results, want something more like this. Because otherwise, they're spending too much time searching everything when they want to search everything in their field. And I was an education student, I was a teacher. I don't want anything other than what's in ERIC, what's in Education Source, those top journals and books in my field. No interest in the engineering stuff. So I would have loved to have an education discovery service. Having ERIC is great, but it's abstract and index. I want the full text. I want the books. The books aren't included in ERIC. So having a discovery service in my field would have saved me a lot of time. So Liverpool have that. So the profile that we have for Liverpool is now being replicated, copied elsewhere within Europe and now in the US and beyond, because it really does serve all the purposes we're looking for. What we can also do with the disciplines is have an A to Z, a journal listing. Most of you should be familiar with a tool that will list the journals that a library has. Well, wouldn't it be helpful for the faculty and the subject librarians to break those down further into these subject disciplines at the journal title level? So we do have the A to Z, and some of you may be familiar with EBSCO's A to Z, but we're really taking that forward to incorporate that into EDS, so that you're still in EDS, but you've got these different disciplines, and you can use this as a filter. Okay, more pictures. People like this because it's pretty, and that's worth remembering. I am sure there is a nice tree, a nice building that really would promote the library. Put it on your webpage. This often gets okay, this works. You still have the real-time availability of the computers, you have the search box, you have all the different tabs. But this is something that you should bear in mind when you create your page. This is one of Rui's favourites, and he will tell me how many book carousels he's been setting up recently. So this is a book carousel. If this was live, this could be revolving. It's a dynamic book carousel. And what it's doing is promoting textbooks, ebooks, whatever books that you have that could be useful for the faculty, for a department, or for the library as a whole. And all you need to do is slide from side to side to find the book that you're looking for, to really engage your collection, to push your collection to those users. Here's the regular discovery, and here are the other library aspects that you'd expect. But this is being used across all markets, health, corporate, academic, to push some of those expensive titles that are going to be popular. So one of the questions that I often get is, and particularly in some of the articles that are being written about Discovery, is who is Discovery for? Who is it aimed at? Who is the target audience? And the answer is really quite simple. Everyone. Oh yeah, of course you're going to say everyone. But in the first generation of Discovery, when Lissy was talking about moving from Google to a discovery tool, it was really considered that it was undergraduates. It was like a Google experience, but more for the library. So what we've been working on is to really help the higher level researcher. How can we include the Boolean operators, the field codes, all the things that your information technology learning has been put to good use, to make sure that there's a search history, so that you don't have to keep barreling the same search terms in. You can just open up your profile and then rerun your searches. And more importantly, for faculty, for people that are busy, clinicians, professors, is to have the latest results going to their email. So they don't even have to touch the searching once they've already conducted their search. They don't have to keep coming back to the library and saying, is there anything new on Higgs boson? I don't know. Let's retype that in. Well, we can push the results on Higgs boson into that research component into their email, and to have the folders which you've seen. So here are some examples. When I was saying Lund have student, lecturer, guest access, this might be the researcher profile, so that they are used to having the Boolean operators, they're used to using the subject headings for their searches and not just expect to find things in the full text. To use some of these limiters that you would have in subject indexes like InSpec and Medline and PsycInfo. And all the wildcard truncation that you're used to in EBSCO host, all of the wildcards, all of these different proximity searching, truncation symbols, syntax, they're all included in Discovery. You are not losing one aspect of the knowledge that you have and that your users have to search Discovery. And the search history, search alerts. Very simple. If you're typing in any of these terms and don't have to keep rerunning them, you can either type in S1 or you can just create an alert for every time there's something on meteorology and climate change. Okay, so what is the landscape like from the user perspective? What do they think of discovery tools? So there's a comparative user experience of these discovery tools in Library Trends. Has nothing to do with commercial vendors. Ex Libris, ProQuest, EBSCO didn't generate these things. So one of the questions was, if I were doing my own research, I would be able to find what I needed using this discovery platform. That's the question that you should be asking yourself is this going to help my users find stuff? Is it? Otherwise, we're all wasting our time. And across the board, it's very high percentage, yes. I agree, strongly agree. The salespeople will talk about the differences between the different providers. I'm more on, does a discovery service work? Will I be able to find what I'm looking for? So does it add value to the catalogue, the OPAC databases and journals? Yes. Even if you have first generation, it's still going to be slightly better. If you're using a second generation tool, 100% of the time they're going to be able to find what they're looking for according to this independent research. And then the second question that one typically asks oneself is, yeah, but is it easy? Are they going to kind of look at it and go, and then never use it again? Let's have a look. So across the board, the numbers are much worse. Much worse. So they think a discovery tool is cool, they find what they're looking for, but they don't always think it's easy. And that's why my presentation as a product presentation is on the profile, is on that screen, the widgets, the research starters, all of those tools that you can use or not use for different types of users. So what we're looking to do, and really my job, is to get that 80% up to 100. And no one said that they didn't like it. They were just not as keen as I would like them to be. So what I would do is change some of those profiles of it's all right. I want them to think it's fantastic. And that's really what myself and Rui are tasked to do. So what we need to do is maintain our advantage of having lots of customers and use these sessions to feed back some of the ideas that are being incorporated in there to make sure it's easy to use. And because the first generation tools don't have the flexibility of the research starters, of the widgets, of having the integration of the subject indexes, you can see why there's a difference. One of the another librarian said about discovery tools, it was a question more than a statement, is discovery tools a bit like Pepsi and Coke? You know, is it really just the same sort of thing but kind of branded differently? And for the first generation tools, it really is. They're using the same kind of technology. They're using thin metadata. They're not using the controlled vocabulary, the subject headings. So yes, if you're deciding between a first generation discovery tool, it's whatever flavor you like, whatever's cheapest, whatever works with what you have today. But what we do with a second generation tool is really leaving those comparisons behind. It's comparing Alta Vista, things that are kind of old news, with a Google, something that's really being developed every single day with a huge audience to really focus on this user experience. So that's the implementation presentation. That's really so that you understand the user experience and how we can make it work for you. And I expect here questions about more of the detail about discovery services. Please. Excuse me, can we just get the mic? Because we have...
So my question is, how do you deal, if you deal, with different information systems, with different kind of metadata and information? For instance, archives, museums, libraries, and so on.
Do you want to take that?
EDS. So EDS basically uses standards. In case of catalogs, we use MARC, Unimarc, and other standards. In case of repositories, we use Dublin Core, EAD, etc. So basically, we take that information that comes in standards and map it into our information system. Like this, we are able to get, for instance, on the catalogs in MARC and Unimarc, map the fields that are different into a single unified field in our systems and being able to search it like that. This is how we handle the information.
So the end user will see something like this using those different formats, but the presentation would be something like this. The back office is handled with the different formats.
Okay, so how you handle the different kinds of metadata? Should I convert all my metadata different systems to a unified language?
No, we'll do that for you.
So the question for people that...
I already know the experience.
Really?
I'll just repeat the question so it goes through the mic. The question was, should an end user, should an institution recreate and reformat their content so that it's much easier to be incorporated into the Discovery Service? And the essential answer is, we have experience of so many different formats from these different institutions. Some are using the different formats Rui mentioned, some aren't. So the standardization of that content can be done by us.
Okay. Another question. Imagine that you have digital content that we can show in the internet and digital content that you cannot show in the internet for copyright reasons and other reasons. So your discovery systems control can control this kind of showing and using this information.
Yeah, so in terms of content that is freely available on the internet, we'll have guest access, we'll show and integrate that content. If it's copyright protected, if there is license agreements needed, then we'll put it behind the authentication wall. So you'd have to authenticate through IP or through library card or proxy server to then find the copyright protected licensed material. Good questions.
As perguntas podem ser feitas em português, não tem nenhuma obrigação de fazê-las em inglês. Para isso eu procuro aí também de outras coisas, hein?
Okay, so please.
How do you solve? I think sorry. Sorry. I noticed that I think you can solve you solve pretty well the one of the problems of the first generation of this kind of solutions, and that was how to manage, how to show the information about circulation of the books in the catalog and other services that the traditional catalogs provide. How do you do this kind of implementation? Do you have
Web services.
Okay.
Web services.
Okay. Web services. Okay.
So basically, we sign agreements with the publishers, and then we define a common structure for a web service, what we need and what they can provide, and based on that, we build the integration that you see.
Okay. I understand. Okay.
So one of the things that I haven't covered, I didn't want to go too detailed, too boring, too producty. I'm conscious of my own boredom factor. But a common question that I get that you may be thinking about but haven't been able to articulate it in English is, how does it work? How does the relevancy work across all these different collections? How does the algorithm work? What is our secret sauce, as the Americans would put it? What makes EBSCO Discovery Service work better? Why is Google better than Alta Vista? And this is one of the biggest factors. There is stuff I can't tell you. I'd have to kill you. The secret proprietary stuff in the algorithm. But one thing we can tell you that makes us different is this stuff. Thank you very much. Is the subject headings. The first generation discovery providers do not have agreements with the APA, the American Economic Association, all of these subject index providers that allow EBSCO to use subject headings. I was saying before that companies like Elsevier and Scopus don't provide subject headings to any discovery tool. Well, the APA, the American Psychological Association, does not permit any discovery tool, including EBSCO, to use the PsycInfo, PsycArticle, PsycExtra subject headings if you're not a subscriber of those subject indexes. That's fair enough, because that's their business. However, what makes, and from a content point of view, what makes the first generation discovery tools and the second generation discovery tools different is if you do have PsycInfo, EconLit, InSpec, CAB abstracts, blah, 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 subject index, EBSCO can incorporate them into the record and into the relevancy. And that changes the experience of the searching. It's all very well having cool graphics and cool widgets and all these different things, but what's most important are the results. If you look at some of the case studies and articles comparing these different discovery tools, this is what they care about. This is what they really focus on, is if I'm searching on global marketing, am I looking for it as an exact match in the title, or am I also looking for it in the subject headings? So the librarians, the NISO, the Standards Organization for Discovery Tools, are now insisting, are demanding that these subject headings are part of the relevancy ranking. And if you think about Stockholm Syndrome, if you're a tourist and you're lost in Stockholm, you write a travel article, you're going to call your article Stockholm Syndrome. It's funny, it's clever, it's a play on words. It's not on the psychological condition of Stockholm Syndrome. So having Stockholm Syndrome in the title and in the subject headings is going to differentiate results. So things like multiple personality disorder is another good example. There are articles about computer passwords, about we all have 12 different passwords for different things that we're using. We have these different avatars on video games or Facebook or in our world of the social media, different personalities out there. So lots of articles on the IT front are called multiple personality disorder because we get crazy about it. Well, that's not what you're looking for if you're typing in the term multiple personality disorder. So having exact matches in the title, how the first generation discovery tools work, doesn't always give you relevant results. Having the subject headings does. So EDS will always win on relevancy ranking because, number one, we have the subject indexes integrated, and number two, we actually use them. Okay, so that, when we look at the picture of the guy with his head in the haystack, looking for the needle in the haystack, having good relevancy makes discovery tools work. Google works better than ask.com. I try, just because it's fun. Relevancy is everything when it comes to helping researchers find content. So I just thought that on a detail level, it was worth mentioning how relevancy works in different discovery tools.
In
health science. One of the resources more used by our researchers is PubMed or Medline.
Yes.
And usually they search with specific strings.
Yes. Yes.
That only exist in PubMed and
That's
Medline.
Right. Yep.
So if advanced research would like to use PubMed or Medline or here with the EDS, they are specific tools are available, or and the way that they structure the string, it's the same. There's not a difference.
Yes, great question. One of the things that we've been looking at with controlled vocabularies with their own field codes is whether when they click on advanced search, we actually show them the different PubMed, Medline field codes. They can use them. That's easy. If they've already got their search history using Medline, and then they go into Discovery and EBSCO host, they would still be there. But the question really is, from a user point of view, from a product point of view, is how much do we push them towards these things? So familiar users are okay, we've got them covered, but what about unfamiliar users? Because if you think about it, if you're starting off your medical degree without having all of those strings already in place, you need to know that they're available. We don't want to dumb down Discovery for the new recruits coming in that would be using PubMed and Medline. So we're trying to make Discovery be the place where even those advanced researchers that haven't learned the field codes would go to too.
I'm just asking because some researchers are used to to search in specific databases, and it's not easy when we advise them to use
That's right.
Different platform.
That's right. And the other thing from a product point of view that we're looking at is, you can see here some of the collections that these results are coming from, Informit, Academic OneFile, to have these as hyperlinks so that they see this is from Medline, so that they can click on that and go straight to Medline, still with their string of mesh subject heading field codes incorporated. So that's another thing we're trying to do. We don't want the next generation of students and researchers to move away from that sophisticated searching. So we're continuing to push it as much as we can. So are there any people in the room that don't think a discovery service is worth a look? Okay, I'm done, Patricia. The rest is up to you. What about more detail about discovery? I am a product guy. I can answer the craziest questions, and having Rui here gives me so much comfort. I don't always get blessed with his presence when I present. You do, because he deals with you more than he does with me. Would you like a live demo? How are we doing for time? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is take you to our administration portal. Does everybody know EBSCO admin? Hands up if you don't know EBSCO admin. Go on, be honest. This is a small group, okay? So this is where your profile would be for your databases, and where we're incorporating EDS, the link resolver, the A to Z. It's all going to be within EBSCO admin. So for those of you that are familiar with EBSCO admin, you're familiar with this screen. So what this does is allow you to create your profiles. You can have one, you can have unlimited amount. Guest access, different disciplines, trial, beta site, so that you can do things behind the scenes. And here is when you can make all of those configurations. You can change the autocomplete, you can do spell checking, all the obvious things that you'd expect, and this is how you can change your profiles and hide some of the content that may or may not be of value to those different disciplines. This is where you can change all of the experience, the detailed view, the simple view of the results, all the things that you'd expect, very simple. And the modification of the widgets, the holdings, the catalogues, is all held in this very simple user interface, which many of you will know. So this is their profile. I've shown you before. Choose a subject, dentistry. Again, completely different experience as if you were in engineering. Okay? So I try and find search terms that everybody understands in different languages. So if you type in weather forecasts at Liverpool, you will get these QR codes, you'll get all these different widgets. You can hover over the images. You've got RTAC of their catalogue. You've got these link resolving elements. You've got a reading list integration if you're faculty, if you've got anybody that you have to deal with reading lists, creating reading lists, that's integrated into EDS in this profile too. They've got nice standard facets, but in this case they've opened up content provider, but they keep the others closed. Okay, so it's very quick, very simple. And you've got these smart links to the full text, which requires no link resolver. They've got this either from journals that they subscribe to from EBSCO. They've got this from a full text database. Goes straight to the full text as you'd expect. So the discovery experience has got to be quick, it's got to be simple, and it's got to be relevant. The advanced search will have all of these different elements of a subject index if that's what they decide. And of course the search history will have the experience where you can do your revisions, and then you can just save them into your folder here by signing on. One of the questions we often get when I mention the two words sign in or sign on is, can you do single sign on? And now we've developed the technology with Shibboleth and SAML. Any others? Athens, thank you. So if you're used to using any of those, Athens, Shibboleth, SMAL, we have single sign-on. And what does single sign-on give you? The ability to go to the correct profile, to find your folders, all of those different things that you would want is now available in Discovery. That's a relatively new thing across the Discovery platforms, is single sign-on. So again, you're not losing anything from the advantages that you have today with single sign-on.
May I ask you?
Please, yes.
When you put together our local catalog and the EBSCO databases, when you make a search, which language would you use? Because our catalog is in Portuguese. How you can put together both languages and get an integrated search?
We will make the search using the language that it's defined on the subject. In case of the catalog, will be Portuguese. In case of the other databases, the articles were published in English, so the terms that are there are in English. Sometimes on the catalogs, the subjects have multiple languages, English, Portuguese, so in that case, we can search both.
But you have to make two searches for the same theme, because one in Portuguese
Only one.
And other in English.
Only one. Imagine that your catalog has subjects in English and in Portuguese. So if you'll make the search in English, we take the English expressions. If we search in Portuguese, it will use the Portuguese expressions.
In that case, we have to do two searches. If I want to get the results in Portuguese, I will have to do another search with Portuguese terms.
Yes.
So what are the things that the next thing that we've got for the autumn or fall program is to do more mapping for languages and for different subject indexes. So for the languages, we are using the local national libraries typically that hold their own thesauri to cover subject terms. So in France, in Spain, we've already started working with the national libraries to map, as you saw, deafness, whatever deafness is in Portuguese, so that when you're searching deafness in Portuguese, you're also getting deafness in English to get more results. So Portuguese is in the first phase of mapping because we have Brazil, we have Portugal. It's a key language for us. There are 5 languages that we're doing this calendar year to map exactly the experience you're talking about. The second piece of that is the mapping of subject indexes. And as familiar users of Medline or PsycInfo, we'll be mapping things like Medline with CINAHL, so that the term in CINAHL will be mapped to a similar but slightly different term in Medline. The example that I can only get off the top of my head is the word stress. Organizational stress could be burnout. It could be lots of different terms in different subject indexes. So we are mapping stress, occupational stress, with burnout across PsycInfo, Medline, CINAHL, and so on. So there's language mapping and there's subject index mapping, all unique to EBSCO.
You mind to talk about the users?
Yeah.
And like authoritative control or integration with authoritative.
Yeah, so EBSCO admin is one of the most used ways of getting usage statistics. These are the standard reports that I just pulled up here. And you can see the obvious things of session by hour, database, title, IP, interface, browser, and device. All these different full-text links, custom links, and so on. What we're also doing is using our knowledge from the subscription business that EBSCO covers. And we have a product, they call it usage consolidation, that will talk more about your return of investment. Is your Wiley collection being used? There are pie charts and graphs to show the trend. Has it gone up from last year? Has it gone down from last year? Because the thing about a discovery tool, because it is incorporating your journal collections, your journal subscriptions, your databases, each individual title as well as the collections, it's not only increasing usage of the library, but it should be increasing the usage of the most appropriate, relevant articles and titles. So libraries are really focused on discovery and usage to make those decisions for subscriptions. It's a much neater tool rather than expecting the user to go to your Wiley collection, to go to individual journals. It's much harder to get a better sense of the most important titles because it's really on user behavior and knowledge that CINAHL is there, that Medline is there, that these collections are there. So we are incorporating the usage consolidation tools from our subscription business, for EBSCO.net and so on, into Discovery. So what you'll be able to do is really get a better, more descriptive view of articles, sessions, titles, collections, databases, because you are funneling the user through one portal. You're not expecting them to come in from different angles. So yes, usage is something that we have today, and we have all the things that you'd expect for Counter and so on, but we're going beyond that to really talk about the acquisition librarian role. how can we help them figure out from a discipline, from a department perspective, if they've got a budget for business titles, what are the key business titles across a database, across a collection from a publisher and individual magazines, Time, Forbes, Business Week, and so on. So yeah, it's critical, and we have a real advantage of having all of these different businesses of databases, subscriptions, and EDS and ebooks, so that our usage is merged into one experience. And it looks nice too. You've got the graphs. Good question.
About the authority control, about the authority control, like we have now EBSCO system.
Yep.
And we have an authority database integrated with is it possible to use it in the ADS search by authors, for instance?
So if you're, I'm just trying to repeat the question in case I didn't hear. If you're using Aleph as an ILS...
No, we have another authority database, okay, in our system, integrated in our system. If we use the ATS, if we something similar in the search by authors or not, is it possible to search something like this?
Yeah. So, currently, we are working on the integration, on the normal integration of the authorities file. What we have currently is the integration with VIAF, the authorities. So basically, if University of Lisbon exports the authorities into the Central Library of Portugal, they export that file into VIAF, and then we can make an integration. I can show you one example.
But you have thesaurus integrated in the...
We have multiple thesaurus.
You have a thesaurus?
Multiple.
In English?
In English. So basically, Samuel Clemens, it's Mark Twain. So we are using VIAF to get the proper name. It could be the same as if we would use Alberto Caeiro, exactly the same. He would get the other alias that he has in multiple languages, because sometimes they publish in multiple languages, and we can get. And if you would click, it would just repeat the search using that alias. So we are able to make that kind of integration with authors. É a Biblioteca Nacional que faz. Sim, sim.
Nós então temos que pegar na nossa base de autoridades, passar para a Biblioteca Nacional e...
Supostamente já deveria estar a acontecer.
Is this something I should write down so we can develop this?
Agora em português que é mais fácil.
Sim.
Aquilo que o Clive estava a dizer há pouco sobre o mapeamento dos tesauros. Esse mapeamento acaba por criar um novo tesauro próprio de...
that specific mapping eventually will create a new thesaurus.
Yes, we call it the EBSCO knowledge base thesaurus. So we will be holding all of those combined controlled vocabulary terms into our knowledge base and then pulling from the different subject indexes to find this spine of the subject headings.
And this new, now in English, and this new thesaurus,
yes.
It's available?
So one of the things that we're trying to do is figure out from the rights perspective who owns that spine. Because we're taking all the hard work from the APA, the AEA, and National Library of Medicine to create those terms, and then creating our own spine for discovery. But can we then make that available as metadata to the academic market? That's something that the lawyers will have to work out, the licensors will have to work out. In practice, it means that the Discovery Service will be able to operate far more effectively, but we also want to make all of this freely available for APIs, for sharing metadata. So the legal teams will have to decide who owns it and who gets paid for it. It's all those individual rights holders will decide eventually. But from our point of view, we know that we can create our own proprietary spine with all this different mapping.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just finish this session. My card is over there if you do want to contact me with any enhancement requests, or I saw this slide, I quite liked it, can you send it to me? I'm happy to do that directly with you. You have Patricia and Licia, who speak pretty good Portuguese, that can talk to more about your individual needs and do trials and bundles for you and save you a lot of money. So thank you very much for your attention.